I'm delighted to get a chance to talk to you a little bit about the events in your life, because it's been a very full 86 years. How do you describe yourself?
Well, I describe a human being, a writer, yes, a dissident, a woman, a person who is trying to express herself truly and pay her life to say what she believes in.
Were you born rebellious? I mean, you say you're a dissident. Were you born saying no and not doing what you were told?
Yes, I think so. I think dissidence, part of it is genetic. My grandmother was revolutionary. She was a peasant woman in the village. She was illiterate, but she was revolutionary. So it was in her blood. So I took part of her genes in my blood, in my body. But part of it is also acquired through training, reading, traveling. So it's both ways, part genetic and part acquired.
In your autobiography, you talk about, as a very young girl, being aware of the patriarchy.
When I went to school, when I was 6 years of age, so the teacher told me, write your name. So I wrote Nawal. He said, no, write your full name. So I said, Nawal Zainab, that's my mother, because she's the one who taught me how the alphabet. So I said, I wrote Nawal Zainab. So he crossed the name of my mother very severely, very cruelly, and said, no, cross this name. Write the name of your father and grandfather, the father. At this moment, something illuminated. Why? Why my mother's name is crossed? Why? Though she's the one who gave birth to me, who taught me how to read and write, everything.
And did you have that sense of injustice even then, as a little girl?
Yes, I felt
6 years old.
injustice. It's unfair. It's cruel, unfair. So I rebelled. From that moment, I started to feel that I am a dissident. I'm not going to accept that, not at all.
As you grew up, were women's rights, was feminism even something you were aware of?
No. Of
In
course,
the 1940s?
my father and mother were relatively liberal, not like other fathers, because at the age of 10, my cousins were married. And even they tried to marry me off when I was 10. But I rebelled against that because I loved education. I wanted to go to school. And my mother supported me and my father supported me a little bit. But the family was manipulated, wanting me to be married like all other girls. But they couldn't, because I rebelled and also my mother stood behind me, and because I was very good in school. So I continued my education and went to the medical school, to the medical college. But during that time, during the 30s, almost all the girls in my family, they married when they were very young.
What did you think of men when you were 10, 11, 12, and they were trying to marry you off?
When I was very young, I hated them. I tell you why. Because my brother, who was older than me, 1 year, and he was not good in school, he was lazy. He was spoiled as a boy. So he didn't study well. He didn't work at home. So I studied well, I worked at home, and then he was rewarded by freedom. He went out as he wants. So I felt I hated him because he was having many privileges, just because he's a boy. So I was angry with him, and I was angry with God too, because my family said, that's what God said. He's a boy.
That was always the answer. It's God's will.
Yes, they didn't have an answer except that what God said, that he's a boy, he should have double what you have.
That's still what people say across the Middle East, isn't it? When you ask
Not the
them
Middle
anything.
East, all over the world.
Well, maybe all over the world.
All over
but
the world.
especially, I think, in Muslim countries. If you question anything, and ask people, why is this happening? The answer you get often is, it's God's will.
It's God's. It's God, yes. But it's universal. It's because I lived in non-Muslim countries, Christian, Jewish, Hindu. They also speak about God all the time. Not in India. I lived in India some years, but not in India very much. But also people are oriented to say that God does everything. But yes, especially in our countries, God always there, interfere between the wife and the husband in the bed. God interfered in everything. So the first letter I wrote in my life was to God. Because I told him, yes, God, you are not just, and you treat me badly, and you treat my brother better than me, though I am much more intelligent than him. And this is not fair. And if you are not going to be fair, I'm not ready to believe in you. As a child, I wrote that. And I think, because after that I worked as a psychiatrist, I still do, but when I asked many women and men who came to my clinic about their childhood, they told me that's the same thing, that there was a conflict between them and God when they were young.
You said you see yourself, well, as a human being, but certainly as a dissident. Mm-hmm. You are seen by millions of women and millions of students as a feminist, mm-hmm. and as a feminist icon. Your writing has been studied for decades.
Yes.
At what point did you decide to write about the injustice of the patriarchy, as you saw it?
Well, I think all my life, even when I was a child. I have a book which I wrote when I was 13 years of age, because I had a diary, hidden diary, secret diary, Memoirs of a Child called Su'ad. I published it, about a child. So you see how I was very much against patriarchy. Because what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is this double standard, is this double morality, double law, is this that a man dominates you just because he's male and all that. So feminism is not something that I have to study. Girls become feminists without knowing what is feminism, That's it. So I started writing about my problems of girls, of my sisters. The minute I hold the pen, I started writing about that.
Why were you writing? I mean, were you writing because you just had to express yourself, or because you wanted to change things?
In fact, to express myself. That's number one. I was not very aware of changing when I was young. I just want to pour myself outside, the anger outside, the fear outside, hostility outside, everything outside, to get it outside, to get rid of it. But after I grew up and after I studied in medicine and became aware, slowly I started to think that I want to change something. I want to change the whole world.
But what did you want to change?
Why I wanted to change? Because everywhere I go, there is injustice. It's a world full of injustices. Every step, at home, in the street, how boys treat me in the street. When I was a child, carrying my bag, going to school, male children in the street used to throw stones on my breast, to throw me with stones, especially on my breast, because I'm a girl going out, So I was furious. So I carried stones and I threw them. I was aggressive too. And when they found that I am as aggressive as them, they were afraid of me, That's why I started to be dissident. I felt that to be aggressive, to be dissident, to attack the people who attack me is good. I shouldn't submit. Because the boys were afraid and they ran away from me. They never stoned me after that.
So have you seen one of your jobs in life as being to change the world?
Yes, of course. Of course. Unconsciously, when I was a child, when I was a girl in secondary school, when I was in the medical college, I wanted to change the world, unconsciously. But after that, after I graduated, after I worked, I started to organize women. I started to understand the benefit of organization, that I cannot change the world alone. We must have a big organization. And those people who are organized should be aware of their rights. That's why I started writing seriously about women's rights. So it came gradual it came.
You had an organization for women.
We had an organization that was banned.
It was banned. And why do you think it was banned?
Why the government banned it? Because when Sadat put me in prison, because my life went on like that my dissidence increased. The more I read, the more I live, I feel the injustice more and more.
What were you calling for? What was the aim of your organization?
Our organization was to liberate women, not just like what we call liberal feminism. No. We have to liberate women economically, socially, psychologically, physically, religiously. So our feminism, we called ourselves historical, that's the slogan of our group, historical socialist feminist. Because we studied history and we understood that the oppression of women is not specific of Egypt or Arab people. It is historical. It is everywhere, in every country. Women were rebelling in all religions, in India, in Egypt, under Hinduism, under Judaism, under Christianity or Islam. Women were fighting for their rights. So we call ourselves historical. Feminism is not a Western invention. Feminism was not invented by American women, as many people think. No, feminism embedded in the culture and in the struggle of all women all over the world. So we call ourselves historical, and we call ourselves socialist because we are against class oppression. We are against capitalism because capitalism is linked to patriarchy. We are against patriarchy, not men. We are not against men. We are against patriarchy, the patriarchal system, the domination of men in religion, in economy, in culture, in everything, in science. That's why we call ourselves historical socialist feminists. And
this organization terrified the men in power, didn't it?
Terrified, yes, of course. It terrified them. That's why they banned it. And in fact, we were about to create a revolution because we had 40% men. We had 40, we were not all women.
Men were joining too.
We had 40% men and young men, very enthusiastic about these points.
Why were they joining? Why were men joining?
Because they felt that men are oppressed by patriarchy too. That patriarchy oppresses both men and women, not only women. They understood, and I was writing about that. And they were also against class, against capitalism. And they loved very much the link between class oppression and women oppression. So this illuminated them. And many of them were socialists. So, because some of them were Marxists, because the Marxists did not join us. The Marxists did not join the Arab women because they said, no, women should not have a special organization. No, and women has no cause. Automatically, they will be liberated if we have communism. So we didn't agree to that. But the socialists, the young men socialists, who wanted to link the oppression of class, economic oppression, to women oppression, to gender oppression, and sexual oppression, they joined us.
Why were you not a Marxist?
Why? Well, because I read Marx. Because many people who are Marxists never read Marx, never, because I read it. That's why I'm not Marxist, I'm not religious, because I studied religion. The more you study religion, you become non-religious. The more you study Marx, you become non-Marxist, because you know the defects of the theory and also the contradictions. And Marx himself was not a Marxist, you know, he was not a Marxist. And also I look to the life, the private life of the writer or the philosopher. Marx himself was very patriarchal, very patriarchal. Even he had an illegitimate child, and he didn't respect his woman. So I like integrity. I cannot believe in a philosopher that speaks about justice and then he treats his woman very cruelly or does not recognize his child. You know, I do that. I do not separate between private life and public life.
When you look at women now, especially in Egypt and the Arab world, do you think they are any more liberated than you were?
Yes, of course. A group of women and men who are liberated, you know, in the sense real liberation. And we have in the middle people who are trapped between being liberated and going backward. And we have the third group who go back. I will give example for women. For instance, in Egypt, you find in Egypt now women who are veiled completely, niqab, who follow the Salafi groups or the Muslim brother, and they are veiled, and they consider their self sex object for the man. He should own her, and she should cover. And this is very retrograde, quite a big sector in society like that, women.
Not just in Egypt. I mean, this is happening everywhere, isn't it?
Yes. That's why I do not separate between the local and the global. Yeah. We use now one word, glocal.
But many of them would argue with you when you say they see themselves as sex objects. They say, no, we wear this because it empowers us.
It empowers them.
That's what they argue.
How? But well, I discuss with them because they come to my clinic and they are sick because of this cover. Because nobody likes to cover the head. And why the head? You know. So there is a lot of hypocrisy. And also they are brainwashed. And also they are oppressed, so they don't want to confess that they are oppressed. It's a psychological problem. But still, some of them are convinced. I met some of them who say, well, I agree that my husband can marry 4 wives. I agree.
What do you think when a woman says that to you?
If she agrees that her husband can marry 4 wives, and then I ask her, can your husband allow you to have 4 husbands? She say, oh no. I say, why? Why do you accept to be just 1/4 of a woman in the life of your husband, and you do not allow yourself to have this right? And she starts to think, because they don't think. They are brainwashed. And because the fear of God, the fear of hellfire. She say, oh no, if I believe in that, I will go to hellfire. I will go to hell. And all that. And this is from childhood. And then we have the sector that is liberated, like my daughter, mind and body, but not Americanized. We have in the middle the women who are Americanized and Islamization with Americanization, that she covers her head, but she uncovers her belly, you know, and she wears the blue jeans, very tight blue jeans, and then she covers her head. So this is the Americanization and the Islamization of women in our region. And it's going on like that.
Why do you think that's happening? And do you think those women, that group of women, and there are many women like that in Western countries, where do you think they fit in the scale of liberation?
First of all, we live in one word. It's the market. It's capitalism. Women are, it's a commodity. Women are commodity. We are commodities, men and women. in this big market, capitalist market. So according to the capitalist market, women should be covered and uncovered. To be covered because a lot of money will come from the veiling. To be uncovered because a lot of money will come from nakedness. You find that the society or the government or the media, they accommodate nakedness and veiling. And in fact, nakedness and veiling are two faces of the same coin. It has the same message. Because when you veil a woman, you veil her, it means she is just a body to be covered. Because you don't veil a mind, you veil a body. When you make a body naked, it means she's a body, because you don't make a mind naked or not naked. So this conception of women as just a body, a commodity for men, in the market, in the capitalist market, it will bring profit. You know, veiling of women brought a lot of profit to the market, capitalist market. And nakedness of women and their makeup, everything, all that, the postmodern woman, it brings a lot of profit to the market. So you see how women are used in the market by religion or by modernism or postmodernism.
And are other women complicit in this?
Yes, you mean that the mother oppresses her daughter? Oh, yes, of course.
And other women?
Yes, but usually slaves. This is slave mentality, slave psychology. Usually slaves hate each other and fight each other to please the master. They want to please the master. So women want to please the man, the master. And that's why they oppress their girls or they oppress women.
In your life, you've tried lots of different ways of being a dissident. You have organized women in political organizations.
Yes.
You have worked as a doctor, trying to help women in poor societies. But then you also became a writer. Why did you feel that you wanted to express yourself as a writer? And what was the link between that and being a dissident?
Well, in fact, I started writing when I know the alphabet. The minute I started to know the alphabet, my mother taught me the alphabet, I started to have a diary because I wanted to say something secretly against my mother, against my father, against the school teachers. I wanted to say something, so I kept a diary. So I was a writer, but my real dream in life, I wanted to be a dancer. I loved dancing like all children. I liked dancing, but this was a taboo. I liked art, music, piano, to play the piano. But my father didn't have the money to buy me a piano. So I was left with the paper and pen to write. So I found it very, very enjoyable. I enjoyed writing, like music. So I continued to write. And because I was very much dissatisfied with the system, everywhere I go, I'm angry. There is many things that humiliate me in society as a girl, as a woman, even as a human being. So I started to rebel, to become a dissident. It was completely natural. I didn't do it. It came natural like that.
But then why write novels?
Well, because I don't separate between a novel or its autobiography. I do not separate between facts and fiction, you know. They are one.
Do you think fiction can have a powerful effect over a dissident movement?
It depends how you write it, because sometimes non-fiction is very powerful. I have The Hidden Face of Eve, which is as powerful as Woman at Point Zero, a novel. And my autobiography is as powerful as some of my scientific work. So it depends how you write it. With passion, with honesty. You write it not just to publish or to be known or to have money. You write because it's like breathing to me. You know, when I write, it's like breathing. If I stop writing, I suffocate. Even in prison, I wrote in prison.
How much of yourself is it necessary to reveal? you have spoken and written about genital mutilation, and you've talked about your own experience as a very young girl. How necessary was it to reveal your own experience in tackling that topic?
It's important, you know. I write, not me only, I think all writers, they write from their own personal life. That's why I do not separate between a novel and autobiography. If you read all writers, you find themselves there. But they hide, you know, but they are there. So I wrote about female genital mutilation because it happened to me and it was happening to women. I wrote against male genital mutilation. I'm not a boy, I'm not a man. But I wrote against cutting male children because it has very bad effect medically and socially and psychologically. So it's not a matter that this happened to me personally, but it is that, of course, if it happens to me personally, I will be more passionate about it.
Do you think you've persuaded people not to do this?
Of course, many. You know, now in Egypt, after the revolution of 2011, I started to know how impact my books on people in Egypt and in the Arab world. And even because my books are translated to other languages, even to India. I remember Indian girls reading my books in India in English. And they came and joined my course in America because I was teaching this course, Creativity and Dissidence. I remember Maya, a girl from India, she told me, I read your book, Woman at Point Zero. And when I read about your course, I joined your course. So it has an impact, yeah.
Do you now understand why people were doing this or are still doing this?
Yes.
To their children?
It's historical. And they are linked. It is historical why they cut children and why parts of the genital system, why not the ear?
Yeah.
Why the foreskin, the cover of the head of the penis? Why? Why the clitoris? The organ of the sexual, why? This is historical and related to patriarchy, to the essence of patriarchy.
Why? Just explain that.
Yes, what is the essence of patriarchy? It is, in short, because I cannot give a lecture on that, in short, it's based on monogamy for women and polygamy for men. That's patriarchy in two words, monogamy for women and polygamy for men. A man can have more wives. A woman, she is forced by law, by power, by killing, to have one husband. Under all cultures, under all religions, monogamy is a must. But women are like men. Women are polygamous like men. Before this law, it's a religious.
So you think it's just about taking away pleasure for women?
Yes, exactly. To attenuate and diminish the sexual pleasure of women. To cut the clitoris, which is the most erectile tissue in the body. And why cutting the foreskin of male? It has a history in Judaism, but it's also related sexually. That to humiliate the human being, to cut. It's like castration. Why they castrated slaves? You know? Why they cut the most sensitive area of the body of the human being? To humiliate in front of gods, because gods need to dominate the human being.
Can I ask you about living in exile? You had to leave your country for many years.
Yes, 20 years.
Because?
I was receiving death threats all the time, and the government put security guards in front of my house, but writers and dissident people were killed by their guards. So I didn't have confidence in the guard that came from the government, you know. So my husband at that time, he told me, you should leave the country. That's why I left, because I didn't want to be killed.
Were you able to keep fighting while you were in exile?
Yes, when I was in exile, I was teaching creativity and dissidence in school, in universities. I kept writing and publishing. I didn't stop at all. And
But did you feel you were being kept down? Did you feel you were being subjugated?
when I
by the
left
system?
my country,
Yes.
well, in a world like that, you communicate easily. You have the email, you have... no, in fact, I didn't much lose connection. I stayed connected to people. That's why when I went back, I found people who know my work and already around me. And then I found myself in Tahrir Square. So I never really was alienated or exiled. I never was exiled.
Because you went back just before what we now call the Arab Spring.
Yes, I went in 2009. Yeah.
How did you feel about the Arab Spring?
There are two views. Some people say the revolutions in the Arab world was made by America. Some people. America was able to make millions to go out in the streets against Mubarak. This is ridiculous. Because you were in Tahrir Square. You cannot move millions of people. So many people think it was an American, mu'amra, something like that. No, it was a revolution, but it was aborted. In fact, it was aborted by the US and Israel and the government itself, the local government, because they were afraid of the people, so they have to abort it. And they aborted it, but not completely. Not completely. There is still remnants of the revolutionary power in Egypt and on all the Arab countries. And it will continue. You cannot stop people. You cannot stop people at all.
At what point do you think it was aborted? When was it aborted?
When? Well, they tried to bring Morsi. You were there. They say Morsi or the Muslim brothers were elected democratically in Egypt. This is an illusion.
Why?
Because there is no democracy in the world. I lived in America 20 years. There was no democracy. Bill Clinton was not elected democratically. Obama was not elected democratically. They were raising funds, money. Donald Trump, was not elected democratically. Come to Egypt. You think that Morsi was elected democratically? It was a lot of money in Tahrir Square. I saw Hillary Clinton in Tahrir Square. Give money, dollars. They wanted the Muslim brothers to be in power because they were afraid that this revolution will bring a very revolutionary government. So they said, no, the Muslim brothers is better. Let's support the Muslim brothers. Colonial powers and imperialist powers, they prefer a religious Islamic revolution rather than a socialist revolution. There is no democratic president in the world. I say truly. Who is the democratic president? Trump? Obama? Who is here in Britain? We should be clear. Democracy is an illusion. We cannot have democracy in a capitalist, imperialist, patriarchal system, religious system.
Why not?
Because this is, they want money. Because if you remove religion and capitalism and imperialism, then you will have socialism. And then no government will be there, They are afraid of the real power of the people. You cannot have democracy. Because what is democracy? Democracy is real freedom.
But if you believe that none of these democracies are democracies, why do the people live with it?
Because people are oppressed. People are not organized. We are prevented from organizing. That's the key point. When I was an individual writer, even if I become famous and star, they allow me, but not to organize. The minute I started to organize women and men, I became a danger. You are not organized here. The people here are not organized.
But nobody is stopping organisation here.
But they stop
Nobody,
it.
no government is going to come and lock you up or kill you in Britain, are they?
But in a subtle way. I know the American way. You cannot organize in the U.S.
Why? What will happen?
Because the government will stand in front of you. You cannot end capitalism. You can't have a socialist revolution in the U.S. You can't.
Maybe there
They
aren't
kill
enough
you.
people.
They kill you.
But maybe there aren't enough people who want a socialist revolution. In
The
the
people
United
doesn't
States.
want socialist
Do
revolution.
you think there are many socialists in America?
Many people, the majority of people, all my friends there are socialists. They are against Trump. You know how millions of people were marching against Trump and they couldn't do anything? Why? Why people were marching in millions against Trump and against the war in Iraq and even against the war in Palestine, everywhere, but they didn't stop anything. Why?
So what is your message to all these people? How should they try to change the world?
Two things: to organize and to re-educate people, to make people aware. Because people are brainwashed by the media, by education. People don't know. When I was a professor in America, my students who were graduates, because I was teaching graduates, they didn't know anything about politics. They are not educated. They have technology, but not educated. So you need to make people aware, to re-educate or to unteach them, to eradicate the very traditional bad education. That's creativity. And that's what I was teaching. Creativity to me and dissident creativity was to unteach people so that they will start to know their rights, men and women, and to organize.
Do you think you have to pick your battles?
To what?
Choose the battles. So you've talked about the patriarchy, you've talked about capitalism, you talk about religious oppression. Can you fight all these three fronts at the same time, or do you need to pick them off one by one?
You need to be aware, number one, because splitting makes us ignorant. Education is based on splitting reality. You know, in compartments, they divide our head. You put here religion, and here gender, and here medicine, and here history. That's why we end by knowing nothing. But creativity is to unite, to link. And now they encourage this social media, which really fragment people. They want to fragment people, not to...
Why do you think social media fragments people?
Because they are alone, they are prisoned. They don't meet.
Doesn't it help people organize?
Sometimes the Facebook and the Twitter and all this help to collect people, but not to make them aware. You know, it's a very difficult job. It's difficult and needs commitment that people should not be just oriented to the benefit of the family, of the biological family. We are trained to be our self-interest, our children, the family. That's why they preach the family, the moral code of the family. The family. When you go to the States, you hear the president speaking about the family. The family. The family is worshipped. The family, and you have. So everybody is working hard and fighting to feed the children on the self-oriented family, but not to open for the society and to have a socialistic organization. No, this is not happening. We can talk about it, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Are you very pessimistic then?
No, I am not. I'm not. Who said? I don't look...
Well, because you say it's not going to happen and it can't happen.
No, it can happen, but we need awareness and we need to struggle together.
Do you believe you will see it?
I am very optimistic because hope is power. I don't believe in pessimism at all. when I was in prison, I was very much hopeful. And in the worst situation, I never lose hope. So we need to continue the struggle globally, global and local, because we cannot fight alone in Egypt. It is a universal battle. Universal battle. But it has to start locally. And then to link. I am very fond of the word link, connection.
Is this a perpetual struggle?
Is it what?
A perpetual struggle.
Yes, yes.
So, in that case, will it ever actually happen? Will the world you want to see
It will come.
ever change? When?
It will come. Well, I don't care about when. If you look to history, you cannot say when. History is history, you know, and life is changing. And we are now much better than 100 years ago. Look at history, and then you will be hopeful. You will be very optimistic if you look to history, yeah.